Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Morning Coffee on this Sunday, May the 31st, the last day of the month of May. Bom dia. Buenos dia. Ohayo gozaimasu. Sawadee ka. Good morning. Let's see, Yuri, the Skype handle. Let's see if I can show it here. There it is. Look in the lower right corner there, Zuri, and you can see the Skype handle. It's Pacific.Hermitage. So, and I think the way our account's set up, you need to request to be a mutual contact, and then I'll accept you. So it's better than passing around Zoom passwords and links. Okay, well, I see 60 people of you are up and ready.
Good morning, Ajahn.
Good morning, Adil. How are you?
Good morning, friends. So I've been reflecting upon your list of don'ts this morning,
Okay.
and I find that perhaps for me, the most important one is the second. I mean, don't do things that you regret, and I think it's the most seminal one for me here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a very good point to make to oneself, and as a piece of advice to a friend who tends to be heedless, for example. And and I really appreciate how it goes against that flimsy postmodern idea of try everything, even if you regret afterwards. And I think, no, you actually better don't. And so this is my, I think, brief reflection upon this topic. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Adil. Okay. Yeah, some of these, that's a really nice reflection, and it heartens me that out of all 5, you picked that one out. I think don't be selfish kind of appeals to people. A lot of the focus tends to be on the higher dhammas in my country, in our culture. People that are attracted to Buddhism have to be attracted for some reason, and most of the demographic that I'm in contact with is attracted by the benefits of developing a meditative practice, and also one might say the higher teachings or the philosophies of the Buddhist insights. So, but part of my interest in the gradual path and popularizing that, or introducing people to that, is the bar is a bit too high, and many people probably don't even get very far engaging in practice, and they might think, well, it's not for me. Maybe it's for others, but it's not for me. Or maybe they just think it's a little rubbish, as the English would say. And they neglect how some of these more foundational elements are in themselves a practice of alleviating suffering. So like the Buddha talks about removing the stain of miserliness, and there's a whole wealth of teachings about how just focusing on your own security, pleasure, safety, interests, comforts is an incredibly narrow way to live. And it feels that way both emotionally, but also your relationships will be severely hampered in life and full of all sorts of dukkha. They will be burdensome instead of the opposite, if that is your orientation. and giving high billing to being a bit more careful and heedful of what it is that we do, what it is that we say, what it is we even think and attend to, flies in the face of a lot of Western psychology and you could say the ethos of the modern world, which is that all experience is good. And and sometimes it has the caveat as long as we're learning from our experience, but one can do real damage to oneself just moving through the world in a very heedless way. I mean, just think about the things that you've done in your life that have caused a sense of harm or regret or remorse. There's things I've said, not even the most horrible things in the world, years ago that still leave some impression, or one even might say stain on the mind. And so the Buddha does not praise that kind of carefree, heedless, all things are equal, overly optimistic sense that we'll just find our way to well-being, and instead encourages being judicious, discerning, discriminating. So, and my way to boil that down, and not just preach morality and good ethics. Like sometimes we talk about ethics, especially in a secular way, and it doesn't even sound moralistic. It just sounds empty of the real import and the real value. And I think we do have to reflect on the negative cost of not understanding sort of the full weight of our speech and actions. So, and I would say in the culture I grew up in, increasing bias and somewhat influenced by postmodern thought that morality and behavior is all a social construct and a kind of moral relativism has a strong influence even today in Western societies. And there's not much of a sensitivity to the objective nature of certain forms of speech and action. And because of that, people do things that really do create a kind of negative reverberation in their mind and in their life that is not easy to remove. And even in the most detailed discussions of the morality that the Buddha asks of his monastic disciples, the benefit always points to being able to sort of live in a way that is free of remorse, a way that is blameless, free of remorse, free of regret. And so one of the reasons why I chose this, like, don't do anything you'll regret, is because it just cuts through detailed sort of notions of right and wrong, good and bad, skillful and unskillful, and especially the morally gray areas of our life in this dimension. Think about what it is that you might regret when you're trying to make a difficult moral decision. So, and included in morality, especially in the guidance that's given to the monastics, is what it is that you give your time to and what you attend to. Right livelihood for a monastic is included in that, as is sense restraint. So, and it's really worthy of reflection. One of my good friends, who's just come back to rejoin the monastic community, was telling me one of the chief things motivating him to leave his job and the relationship he was in to return to monastic life was this kind of long-term analysis of how he would feel at the end of his life, even engaging in good relationships and good works in the world, compared to the ability to sort of dedicate one's life to monastic practice and the higher mind. And there was a sense that he would feel regretful at the end of his life, that he hadn't maybe given it another wholehearted chance, and that he wasn't at least channeling his energies in that way. So, so thank you, Adil. It's wonderful to hear your voice. You have a beautiful English-inspired accent. So, okay. Okay, just checking back in on the chat here. I didn't get to, there's a couple little brief news items that I wanted to pop in here. And last night we had, yesterday was just an amazing day. I heard that there was a big storm coming, and I lived with a constant sense of wonder all day. So like as soon as the stream ended, I went off for a walk thinking that it was going to rain like crazy yesterday. And I went up into the forest on a lovely walk, and the weather was just amazing. It was like Goldilocks temperature. Air was so fresh. The sky was so blue. Wildflowers, trees, birds. Had a wonderful meal, sponsored by Linda in Portland, picked up by a volunteer, and then delivered by Joseph and Kalyani, our Dhamma coordinators, who are nearing the end of their term as fulfilling that role for us. And then after the meal, did a little bit of work and spent some time doing some photography and talking to some friends at Birkin. And then the storm came. Just when I thought that the weather had missed us and maybe the forecasters had chosen the wrong model, the storm came and things got dark and windy and rainy, and that knocked out our internet. It didn't knock out our power, but it knocked out our internet. So for those of you who wanted to join us for evening meditation and chanting last night, that's what happened. Our internet went out and didn't come back until much later in the evening. So, and fortunately, it was there for us this morning. So we might extend a little bit some of our attempt to chant these 3 Cardinal Sutras again in the evening time until I get a good recording of those. But when the internet went out, it reminded me of something I heard online in a discussion the other day. Imagine this pandemic without the internet. If you think your life is simple and have some restrictions now, just imagine being cut off from all this good Dhamma and your friends in that way. So, the other amazing thing yesterday was the successful launch back into space of a new rocket ship. And I was reminded of this by Chris Robson, who was one of the early, if not founding members of the Portland Friends of the Dhamma. He has this wonderful little newsletter that he sends out called the Metta Letter. And he gave a really interesting reflection in that yesterday. Of kind of what strange times we live in. There's kind of riots in the street, and demonstrations going on all across America in the midst of a pandemic. And at the same time, humans are being shot up into space in new and amazing ways. Somehow he tied that all together in a very interesting reflection. It's something I recommend people look at. He sends them out maybe about once a week, or I'm not really sure what the schedule is. But see if I can bring it up on screen here. The name of his Dhamma newsletter is called Metta Letter. And you can find it at tinyletter.com/CJROBSON, Robson. So his name there, that's right under Metta Letter. So, oh, okay, Linda's confirmed it's once a week. That's great. So, all right. Well, let's get back to this. Let me return back to the chat here and see if I can catch up. Okay, so thank you, Ruanthi, for reminding me about this. The qualities of Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Actually, I should put that off until I have some notes in front of me, because I will miss out on many of the good qualities there. I'm not well versed in bringing them up and talking about them, Ruanthi. So maybe I hate to sort of say, remind me again, but tomorrow I'll be prepared for that, and we can go through that. That's very good. And as I'm sure you know, Ruanthi, and I've mentioned here before, much of our evening and morning chanting is built around the reflection of the qualities of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. So if you look to the recollections, which are the shorter parts of the evening chanting section that we do, those list the qualities, and also in the morning chanting, the various sections on Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha are chants sort of working through these qualities of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. So, okay, Samrit. Ajahn, could you please elaborate on how not to neglect your serenity, and also on not doing anything you will regret? Does that include unintentional mistakes that we do at times? Sure, I can do that. I mean, we did a little bit on not doing anything that you can regret. And the very last part of your question, does that include unintentional mistakes? No, not really. Intention, the Buddha sort of highlights as primarily what it is that shapes karma. So, we can't really be accountable for unintentional acts. If we take the case of say just going out for a walk, realistically, I know that if I go for a walk, there is a chance that I might step on a small insect or something and take its life. But that is not the taking of life in the first precept. So karmically it is completely blameless, the only way that something like that could have some sort of karmic weight is if you're being willfully ignorant or insensitive or unreflective. And, really, I would say the karma has more to do with the intention to allow yourself, or the volition to allow yourself to live in such a way, as opposed to, say, the act of killing or something. But we can't we can't really worry too much about accumulating sort of karma that is based on things that are done unintentionally. So, but the Buddha does praise being careful and heedful and thoughtful, and increasing the ability to sort of live in that way. So, as for not neglecting your serenity, there's a couple ways that we might approach that. One, the more foundational elements of the gradual path are building the causes and conditions that naturally lead to a more peaceful and serene life. So, practicing dana and selfless giving and generosity of heart naturally lead one in that direction. And this, people can get kind of morally confused, I think. And one way to kind of really cut through it is to look at this graduated teaching or any of the hierarchical teachings that the Buddha has about the blessings of life. And there is this kind of relationship between the reason why something is skillful and good is it promotes human well-being and flourishing. It promotes happy states of mind, one could say. Or as Ajahn Sudanto said in his retreat, you will feel better. How is it this works? You will feel better. And so, oftentimes when we start talking about serenity, we jump right into meditation, but not neglecting sort of all the other elements of the gradual path is very important, because that will lead to a serene life. So not neglecting serenity is not neglecting all that stuff, but also building on that by having a conscious, intentional, regular sort of effort at engaging the mind and developing the three aspects of the path that are connected with mental cultivation. So right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And you can really think of those in a hierarchical sort of fashion as well. So the right effort and the right mindfulness are aiming towards and are practice in the service of developing the experience of serenity. So, and by serenity, we're really pointing to the chief resultant of a meditation practice, you could say, or the practices of mental cultivation. So by saying don't neglect your serenity, it's saying don't neglect your practice, or don't neglect sort of engaging with your life with the four right efforts and right mindfulness and developing the serene mind. And the serene mind is one that is steady, focused, lucid, joyful, happy, tranquil, equanimous. So, and to whatever extent that we can develop serenity and remember to invite that kind of quality into our life, you also don't want to neglect it. You want to protect it. Like, you want to nurture it. There's a lot of hard work kindling and maturing and developing serenity of heart. And sometimes we just throw it away. The bell rings, we finish our meditation, and we get up and we're like, okay, what's next? And immediately we just move on to the next thing, because the habits of our life are such that we tend to think of things in very a discrete way. And I would encourage you um, never to neglect lingering and remembering and taking any goodness that you've developed in your practice with you through the day. So, and that really applies to the whole of the gradual path. Like the Buddha actually says, you should reflect on the good deeds that you have done, the kind acts. You should reflect on how it is that you act in ways that are blameless and positive. So, like reflecting on your good conduct, what is it you're not doing, um, and delighting in that. But with serenity, also very much the same. Like, see if you can bring that to mind again and again. We even have the recollection of peace as one of the nusatis. And it's an amazing thing just to remember being peaceful and easeful, and even remembering the concept of serenity invites it into consciousness. And it's something to be not neglected and practiced again and again. So, okay. Nadine Santi. The value of ethics. Aldo Leopold's land ethic came to mind. Replace the biotic community with one's own biotic community of mind. Huh. A thing is right when it tends to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the biotic community. It is wrong when it tends otherwise. Huh. I'm not familiar with that. Aldo Leopold. I'll have to look into that. Thanks, Nadine. See, a couple votes for Jill's question here. Good morning. Can you please speak about how to respond to racism and white supremacy as a Buddhist? Well, that's a big subject there, Jill. Maybe how not to respond to it. Not with anger and indignation, for sure. And I mentioned this yesterday. We need to be kind of clear-sighted about the nature of the human realm and not confuse it for the heavenly realm. And this is difficult for people, especially because so many people are focused on, and rightly focused on, the human endeavor of trying to not just better ourselves, but better the lives of our community and the world, and seeking to kind of elevate the standards of human societies. But while that's kind of right, I think one needs to be sort of clear-minded about human nature, and and not be confused about what the possibilities are in the human realm. And it might sound nihilistic or pessimistic, but like, these things are features of human society. And so one needs to maintain a level of equanimity and acceptance, while simultaneously, like, not condoning it and recognizing sort of how it is that one can skillfully respond to it. And while there are things that people can do, I think a lot of people just default to sort of fear and anxiety and anger and indignation and frustration. And a lot of that is fueled by a failure or even a fear to sort of accept that these are the features of human existence. There's greed, there's hatred, and there's delusion. And there always will be. This is not an enlightened realm, and this is not even a heavenly realm. So beyond that, how do you skillfully respond? Well, equanimity, kindness, compassion, be a speaker of the truth, and encourage that, and encourage people in to respond in a similar fashion with kindness, compassion, and equanimity, and goodwill. So anyways, I don't know if that lands for you, but that's kind of spontaneously what kind of comes up for me in thinking about it. One could also feel, and it's very appropriate, a sense of there's a kind of sober, almost like a sober sadness at seeing the nature of human societies and that they're liable to these things. And similar to like yesterday, we were talking about the pain of separation. It's important to acknowledge that this is dukkha. It really protects one from thinking about it in unskillful ways, or one could even say the wrong way. And by that, I mean thinking about it in terms of personality view. So anyways, that's the best I can do for today. I'll leave it at that. Oh, I'm so sorry. There's several other comments that we're just not going to get to today. So Gustavo, okay, good. You've got that. Okay, there's a few suggestions from other people. I appreciate that. Thank you, Moria. There's a good book on anti-racism, How to Be an Anti-Racist by L. Kendi. A couple other suggestions there. All right, thank you. And Cher, thank you for your email and sharing some feedback and appreciation for what these morning coffee times have meant for you and your friend. So, and I encourage other people too. It's really nice to hear from people what it is you like, don't like. As long as it's well-intentioned, constructive criticism is invited. But also it's just nice to hear how useful this is for people so that I can continue to make it as useful as possible. So, all right. Well, let's see. In Ruanthi, I will not forget, tomorrow we'll do a little I'll make a pre-commitment to reflect on the qualities of Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. So, all right. Thank you all. Have a good day. And we'll see you tomorrow morning.